We just need some brave person to kick us off. So anything from last night or this morning that was a valuable takeaway, thought, something for you? Okay, I love it. Yep.
Your greatest fear can become your greatest strength in how you live for God.
Okay, so the comment was, and it's from last night, your greatest fear can become your greatest strength. And what may scare you the most is often what God is calling you to use to impact the world. So that was one. Somebody else takeaway thought either from last night or this morning. Tell me, why did that idea hit you? And the comment was, your calling is always bigger than your career. What did that make you think about?
Because prior to today, prior to a couple years ago, I had it flipped.
Yep.
And the Lord showed me that it was the other way around.
Yeah. So the idea that we often flip that and we think that by hyper-focusing on the career, that's going to fulfill the calling, but not always remembering the calling is much bigger than the career. Yeah. Does a career matter? Sure. And it occupies a lot of time. It does matter. There are great opportunities and platforms, but our calling is always bigger than our career. Love that. Anybody else thought, idea from either yesterday or today?
Steward your thoughts well, let it match how God feels about it.
Yeah. So we talked about that last night, how the younger son in the pig pen was allowing his circumstances to determine what his identity was. And so the idea of you got to steward your thoughts well, the Bible says set your mind. So make sure that your thoughts that you're holding on to are in alignment with what God has said about you. Quick poll. Chris, you need to say something?
No, I wanted to know if you wanted me to get him my...
Oh, okay. Sounds good. Quick question from yesterday. How many thoughts do we have every day? 60,000. What percentage of those 60,000 are negative? 80%. What percentage of the 60,000 are repeated from the day before? 95. So how important is it for you to steward today's thoughts well? It's very important, because if you don't disrupt and steward today, you will inevitably carry over your thoughts into tomorrow. And if it's a great thought, it's empowering, repeat it and keep that thought going. But if it's not, make sure you disrupt that so you don't carry it on. Anybody else, thoughts, ideas, feedback from yesterday or this morning? Yeah, so the idea of your worth and value is not circumstantial, but it's spiritual. And so you got to go back to the one who created you so you can be reminded of the worth and value that you have. Love that. Anybody else? Thoughts, ideas, concepts from either last night or this morning? Yep.
Yes, I can say about your story, about how you had went through different majors. You were trying to figure out what you wanted.
Yep.
What you want to do with your life. Right. I kind of have a similar situation with me. Kind of like in the past
Yep.
5 years, I've been trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. And right now I still don't know. So I'm still in that process.
Yep. Pastor Jeff Stark, could you see if they could turn the fans down? I don't know if we can or not. So the comment was, you're in that whirlwind of what am I supposed to be doing with my life, how overwhelming that can feel. And as I talked about this morning, especially when you're in that I don't really have clarity, focus on the what in front of you. Focus on the who said assignment. Assignment. So again, lead yourself well, take care of the people who have been entrusted to your care, and then make sure you are maximizing the opportunities in front of you. How many of you would agree sometimes you got to create your own opportunity? I mean, you're not helpless. Like, God gave you gifts and abilities. You sometimes need to build your own door. One guy told me this. He said, when you can't find a table, build your own table. And sometimes you got to create your own opportunity. And then we talked about that idea of stewarding that momentum. How about one more? Anybody else? Thoughts from either, we'll go at least maybe one or two or three. Yes, ma'am, and then we'll go over here. Yeah, so the idea of lead your life well, that's fully your responsibility. You can grab onto the help of people around you, but taking full responsibility for leading yourself well. And how many of you would agree that you are going to lead yourself different now than you did 5 years ago? You're in a different place. You're a different season, and for all intents and purposes, you're a different person than you might have been 5 years ago. Yep.
Many are looking to slay giants without spending time in the wilderness.
Oh, yeah. The comment was, many people want to slay giants, but they're not willing to spend the time in the wilderness to let God cultivate that character and grow that inside of you. And I can tell you, if there had never been a wilderness for David, there would never have been a giant story. And so he was willing to go to the unseen to steward that well, to prepare him for what was seen. Oh, okay, sounds good. All right, let's pray, and then we're going to dive in. I'm going to set this up, and then we'll launch into our workshop this afternoon. Hey, God, we just give you the next few moments, 45 minutes or so. I pray this is valuable. I know it's very personal to me, and so I hope, God, that it can impact somebody else and give them a real tool they can have in their toolbox that will be helpful for their life and specifically for their leadership. In your name we pray, amen. Okay, so I want to just encourage you. How many of you have a phone with you? Do me a favor, just keep it out. And I want to encourage you, take photos of all the slides that you want to take photos of, which are going to be up on the screens. It's a lot easier, I think, sometimes to click your phone than it is to write down notes. If you want to write down notes, that's okay too. But feel free to take pictures of the screens so you can look at that later. At the very end of this workshop, I'm going to invite you to take a online assessment through a QR code. So be ready at the end to pop your phone out, and then you can work through the assessment, and you'll kind of understand where we are going with this. So we're going to talk about something called primal questions, and we're going to get to the place where we can help you understand what your superpower may be that you can release on the world as a leader. So here's what I hope we can do in the next 40 minutes or so. I hope that I can give you some massive clarity on your life. By a show of hands, how many of you have had things in your life that have just been confusing? Anybody ever been confused? Anybody, you're a little confused right now on just what might be going on in your life? Have you ever thought to yourself, why does that person get on my nerves so much? Anybody ever had that experience? Have you ever thought, why do I love being around certain people and I don't love being around other people? So we're going to talk about all of that, hopefully give you some clarity. I want to help you have a tool where you can lead yourself a whole lot better. What if I could share something with you that could help you radically improve the relationships in your life that you care about the most? Would that be of value to you? So we're going to talk about how you can increase the health and vibrancy of relationships, and then I want to help you understand how you can release more of your impact to the world and your influence to the world. So here's a question before we go to a little turn to your neighbor. Have you ever been through an experience in your life that left you with thousands of questions and no good answers? Anybody ever been through an experience like that? I was doing some coaching with a gentleman. His name is Mike Barrett, and he was the play-by-play announcer for the Portland Trail Blazers NBA organization for 2 decades, 20 years. He was at every single game. He was calling the games. Mike told me as he recounted this experience, in 2016, during that season, he gets called in for an end-of-the-season meeting to kind of debrief the season. And Mike told his wife before going into that end-of-the-season meeting, he said, I just don't have a good feeling in my gut about something, like something is off. And so Mike, after serving the Blazers organization, NBA team for 2 decades, he goes into this team meeting, and the team meeting usually lasted about 3 hours. This one lasted 15 minutes. He went in, and he was fired on the spot from the Blazers organization. He was the life and blood and personality of Portland, Oregon for the NBA organization. To this day, he still doesn't understand why in the world was somebody who was doing such a good job for this NBA team be fired on the spot like that. Before Mike had a chance to get to his car to drive away from the meeting, he was getting hundreds of texts because the Blazers organization had already released an official press release about him being fired. He hadn't even called his wife yet. And he is still to this day, that was in 2016, he's still to this day, 11 years later, he is just so confused as to why did that actually happen, because I was doing such a great job. I want you to do this. Turn to your neighbor. Somebody sitting next to you. You got 3 minutes. We can't go too long. 3 minutes. And I want you to talk about this question. Talk about a time when you were in an emotional whirlwind in your life. So I want you to think about a time when you were in an emotional whirlwind and it was like an emotional tornado was going on inside your life. Think about an experience when you may have felt like that. You got 3 minutes, ready and go. Okay, we got 1 minute. How many of you, by show of hands, could think of an example from your own life where you were in an emotional whirlwind and your emotions were just all over the place? I think about job loss. I think about relationship you thought was going to go long term, and all of a sudden it did not go long term. I think about walking into a meeting and maybe being fired, or maybe you had an interaction with somebody that was not positive. As we set up what we're talking about today, here's what I have learned. When you are in an emotional whirlwind and you don't fully understand what is going on emotionally, there is always something underneath the surface that is happening that you are not fully aware of, and that's often why you feel the way that you do. Let me take you back to a couple years ago. How many of you remember something called the pandemic? Anybody remember the pandemic? Depending on where you lived in the country, it might have been real, it might not have been real. Just depends on where you called home. The Southern Union, Greg, is very diverse of a territory. We, as far as my family and I, we did not travel a whole lot during the pandemic. We kind of hunkered down, did ministry and life in Portland. When the pandemic lifted, we were very excited to see our family again, to reconnect. So we planned a trip to Nashville, Tennessee, to see my wife's family, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law. They have 125 acres, old Civil War land outside of Nashville, cabins, all that kind of stuff. And so the whole plan was that this was going to be a Hallmark Christmas experience. How many of you can relate to what I'm saying when I say Hallmark experience? What is the storyline of almost every Hallmark movie? It goes like this. Big businessman or big business woman moves to small town USA. Corporate America is about to buy the flower shop or the small farm that is owned by the local family. And all of a sudden, big corporate man or big corporate woman ends up falling in love with the farmer or the owner of the flower shop. And they say no to corporate America to start their small life in the small rural community. And they grow flowers and they're blessed and love wins. That basically is like that's the storyline of almost every Hallmark experience and movie. That's what we hoped that this experience was going to be, but it did not quite play out in that way. About 3 weeks before we were getting ready to leave to fly out of Portland to Nashville, my wife Kim just started feeling really anxious. And I don't know if anybody, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, anxiety can be debilitating. And she just was not feeling good in her gut about life and what was going on. She went and got an appointment with the doctor. She got some anti-anxiety medication. She does not like taking any medication, and you'll understand a little bit later why that is. So she's just kind of feeling anxious. Fast forward to the day of us leaving Portland, Oregon to fly to Nashville. We're there in the terminal, and we're getting ready to board our, again, Southwest Airlines flight, cashing a lot of my miles to get the family these tickets. And Kim's like, I just feel kind of anxious. And at that point, I'm asking her this question. Do you want to fly, or do you just want to stay home? Because we can just change our plans. Our kids at that time were a lot younger than they are right now. And for a lot of us, there's a moment when kids are young where they don't fully know what's going on. They're kind of unaware. So Kim said, no, I think I'm okay. And so we had an A boarding pass. We went in. We sat down. I was sitting behind Kim in an aisle seat. Kim was in an aisle. I'm in an aisle. We each have a kid next to us, and then there's an open window seat. And we are getting all buckled up, and we take off from the terminal, and our plane gets in line on the tarmac to have our position to take off. So we're kind of in line waiting for planes to take off. And Kim turns around for me. We're all buckled up, ready to go. She turns around and she looks at me. And how many of you have seen somebody you love and you can just read on their face, there's a lot of stuff going on in here that they're not saying just based on their expression and how they're feeling. Kim spins around, she leans around the edge of the seat, and here's what she says. She says, I need you to get me off of this airplane. And so I'm just processing what she's saying in the moment. There is just trust me on this. There is so much fear and anxiety on her face that I'm taking what she says very, very serious. She says, I need to get off this plane. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I know what this means. This means calling over a stewardess. This means a depowering process. It means us getting a massive Boeing airplane, not me personally, but getting the plane out of line to get back to the terminal. And she says it a second time. She says, please get me off of this airplane. And so I call over a stewardess, and I said, I need you to come over. She's buckled in. She unbuckles, and I said, my wife needs to get off the aircraft. And she says, you know what that means if we have to go back to the terminal. And I said, I'm clear on what I'm asking. And so all of a sudden the plane depowers and the murmuring starts in the airplane as to why the plane is depowering. What's going on? Is there a medical emergency? I don't know if you've ever been the reason why a plane had to depower, but it's not, you don't want to be on the receiving necessarily the end of that. And so we pull back in, everybody's murmuring. Kim and I at that moment, we have a decision to make. Does the whole family get off the plane, or do I take the kids to Nashville and she stays here? In the moment, right or wrong decision, the kids were oblivious to what was happening on the airplane with mom. So I made the decision with Kim together that I was going to stay on the aircraft, take the kids to Nashville. Kim was going to get off, spend Christmas with my sister who was in Portland. Good or bad decision, that's what we decided to do. So she gets off the plane and I stay on with the kids. We fly to Nashville. When I land in Nashville, it's very late at night, and I flip on the radio of the rental car, and they said something like this: be prepared, we have an Arctic freeze coming to Nashville, Tennessee, and the South. This will be the coldest Christmas in 35 years. And so Kim is in Portland going through debilitating anxiety, and my stomach is all in knots. I don't even know why. All I know is she's there, and I'm here. We go to the cabin in the woods, which is where her parents live. And I'll just say this, and maybe this can stay in this room. I guess we're videotaping, so we'll see what happens. I love Kim's mom and dad. I don't want to spend 9 days with them. I don't want to spend 9 days with them without the reason why I'm related to them. And so if I had to go choose where I was going to spend 9 days in the Arctic tundra, it would not be with my in-laws for 9 days without the bridge as to why we're in-laws in the first place. So if you've gathered this, I suffer from a condition called spiritual ADHD, and I have a lot of energy. So you imagine, here I am, boxed in like a caged animal for 9 days. I did ice baths, all kinds of stuff, just trying to keep stuff going. Here's what was challenging. Kim's dad is a functioning alcoholic. And so the more we were in that house, the more unhinged he was emotionally. Not directly towards me, but it set a tone and culture for the house, to where at day 6 or 7, doors are being slammed. I'm outside in like 10-degree weather, calling Kim on the phone. It's kind of chaotic. The funny thing is, when you ask Remy and Koa, my 2 kids who are now freshmen, sophomore in high school, hey guys, tell me about that cabin in the woods, like that Christmas. Here's what they'll say. Dad, they're like, Dad, that was the greatest Christmas ever. Like, we absolutely loved it. And I'm like, man, we were like living in 2 different cabins. And I said, I'm like, why did you love it? And they said, because we played Mario Kart for 9 days. So they would just go in anybody Mario Kart fans? So they would go in the basement and just like rock out playing Mario Kart, and they had a whole different experience. We left to fly out of Nashville back home, and the moment we left, Southwest canceled 1,000 flights. It was 2022 or something. We fly into Phoenix, and people are so mad, like at the counters, cussing, yelling, and I'm just wondering what's going on. And I go up to the counter and I said, we need to get to Portland, Oregon. She said, we've rebooked you on a flight. And I said, that's so good to hear. She said, the flight leaves in 7 days. We had no luggage. The luggage was lost. We wouldn't end up getting luggage for 4 months. After that, some we never got, and it was just absolute chaos. We booked a little airline called Allegiant. Anybody ever heard of Allegiant? The seats have no padding, and it's just very rustic. Anyway, we got back and we did the best we could. Here's the reason why I tell you this story. Kim and I, we were going through an emotional whirlwind on opposite sides of the country and had absolutely no clarity on why did she want to get off the plane, Why was she in this whirlwind? But I was in my own whirlwind, and I was just not sleeping well. My daughter and I were sharing a bed. She would go to bed, and I would just stay awake that whole 9 days in the cabin, just like running all this stuff through my head, not really knowing what was going on. So all of us in our respective areas were going through this emotional whirlwind with no clarity on what was really happening. Put that story on pause for just a moment. Do I have anybody here in this room who likes theme parks? Anybody theme park fans? Let me call out a couple. Anybody been to Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri? Have you been to Cedar Point in Ohio? Anybody been to Six Flags? Anybody been to Disney of any kind? So the first ride that I remember when I was younger, 10 years old, I'm at Disney with my mom and dad, and my dad says, "How would you like to drive a car for the first time?" And I said, "Dad, like, of course I want to drive a car." And so we go over to Cartopia, or the Tomorrowland Cars ride, and he said, "You're driving, and I'll be in the seat next to you." So we go through this instructional video, don't hit the car in front of you, yada, yada, yada. We get all buckled up. Anybody who's ridden this ride, it's a giant single seat belt that goes over 2 people. And so I'm in the car, and we're just doing our thing there, and all of a sudden the lights go from red, yellow, green, and we take off. And it's like this amazing moment for me at 10 years of age until it wasn't. And so I'm driving, and all of a sudden this car begins to slam all over the track. And this Disney employee, true story, off to the side, I don't know what her name was, but she worked there at Disney. She said to me from this corner, she said, "Hey son, put your hands on the wheel because your car is going all over the place." And I remember thinking, my hands are clearly on the wheel. I know what I'm doing at 10 years of age. And I just want to ask you this. How many of you have been in a chaotic moment in your life where you were holding the steering wheel of your life so tightly, trying to control everything that was going on, but it felt like your life was just slamming all over the place? And you thought in your mind, I'm doing everything right. Like my hand, like Jesus, take the wheel. Like the hands are on the wheel. But it's like your life is all over the place. Here's what clicked for me when I was driving that car at 10 years of age. And this is very important for what we're talking about. What I soon realized is underneath the car, Cartopia, Disney, Tomorrowland Cars, underneath the car, and you can see it in this photo, there is a steel rail that is underneath the car. Can you see that in the photo? Here is the experience as a driver. If your car, and I want you to think about this, if your car is in alignment with the rail, the experience is smooth. But as soon as the car gets out of alignment with the rail that is underneath the car, the reaction is violent, and all of a sudden you are flying all over the place from side to side. Here's what we're talking about today. When you feel like your life is out of control, when you feel like as a leader you are unhinged, unrooted, you're not confident, you're in that emotional whirlwind, 100% of the time, there is something going on below the surface that you don't understand and that you are not able to manage. It's not the car, it's not the wheel, it's the thing underneath that you don't understand, and that's why you're having the reaction that you are having. Everybody tracking with me? All right. We're going to go a little deep today. I hope that's okay. Do I have permission to go a little bit deep, like below surface level? When we think about conversations as in life and leadership, and this would be a great photo to start taking your phone out, and you're going to get a bunch of photos that would be helpful for you to take pictures of. For most of us, when we think about life and leadership, personal growth, even therapy, counseling, for most of us, we stay at the level that I would call is the branches level. And branches level, it's got value. Branches level is when you're stressed, stop, pause, take a breath, drink some water, phone a friend, go outside, go for a walk, journal. Branches level stuff has value. But here's the thing. Branches level stuff will often keep us busy, but hear me on this. Branches level stuff will not set you free. So if you want to be set free, you have to know what is going on in the roots of your life, which is the thing underneath the thing that is driving everything. When I was in that car at Disney, there was something underneath that was going on that I had to understand in order to get the full picture of what we were experiencing. So we're going to talk about the root level of what is happening and what is going on. I want to introduce you to this, which has been so incredibly helpful for me, for my marriage, my relationships, and the people that I support and help develop. I want to introduce you to the primal question. The primal question is the thing underneath the thing that is driving everything in your life. Let me say that again. The primal question is the thing underneath the thing that is driving everything in your life. The question that you hold on to, it represents your most urgent and ultimate emotional need. So here is how this works, and then we're going to go deep, and I hope this is really helpful. Is this helpful for anybody? Okay, so here's how this works. You're born, not this size, but Lord help us, but you're born, you go through life, and as you go through life, you develop certain emotional needs based on the experience that you have had in life. Often the needs come from, hear me on this, often the needs come from, your apex needs, on what you should have received in life but did not receive. Are you with me on that? So you go through life. If you don't receive things that are important for you to receive, like love, support, respect, encouragement, empowerment, you will develop emotional needs that you carry with you throughout your entire life. These emotional needs come across as primal questions. So when you think about a primal question, it really represents a unique need that you have in your life based on the experience that you have been through. Let me ask you this. What are some of the negative messages that we've been taught about having needs? Throw some stuff out to me. Anybody ever heard any negative comments in society when it comes to being in tune with your needs, understanding your needs, having needs? What do you think? Okay, so if you've got needs and you express and talk about those, you are a selfish, I'm not saying that to you. I mean, you look like a very kind person, you know. Is she a kind person? Thanks for affirming her. You're like, why'd you delay? Why'd you take so long to say that? So if you express your needs, you are selfish because you're putting all the focus on yourself. What else have we heard about having needs?
You have to suppress the people.
Okay, so if you got needs, your job is to suppress the needs, not allow them to come out so they don't impact you or they don't impact anyone else. So needs are selfish. Your job is to really suppress the needs that you have. Anybody else? Messages that we hear about having needs. Yeah, if you talk about your needs, you are a burden to other people, okay? So you're selfish, you need to repress your needs, and you're a burden to somebody else. What else have you heard? What is it? Yeah, so if you talk about needs, you're trying to put all the focus and attention on you, maybe instead of serving other people. Anybody else? Messages you may hear about having needs. Yeah, I was going to go there if nobody else did. If you talk about having needs, it is a sign of what? Weakness. Because if you were really secure in who you are, why in the world are you talking about needs? Let me just pop this bubble for this societal bubble. You being in tune with your needs, it is not a sign of weakness. Somebody say amen. It is a sign of clarity that helps you understand the story that is your story and your experience. So needs are not, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of clarity. How many of you think that it's important for leaders to have clarity on what is going on? Okay? So again, let's make sure we got this. You're born, you go through certain experiences in life. Based on what you go through, you develop certain needs that are very important to you, often based on what you should have received but didn't receive. The needs come across as primal what? Questions, okay? Is that everybody tracking with me? Okay, so take your phone out and take a picture of this screen, because I think this will be very helpful for you. When you take all the 10,000 questions that people ask in life, you can boil all 10,000 down to these 7. So 10,000 questions that we ask, and you can boil all the 10,000. This is going to be so fun. Watch the light start coming on for you. You can boil all those 10,000 down to 7, and these are called the 7 primal questions. Let me set this up, and then I just want to jam through each one of these. When you think about these 7 questions, it is very common that you will find a little bit of yourself in every one of the 7 questions. You may ask me, how many people have you worked through this with? It is now well over 50,000 and probably encroaching 75,000. So you're going to find you're going to find yourself in a little bit of all the questions. I just want to also make the comment, no question is better or less important than another question. The question simply speaks to your unique life experience. Somebody with a question 7 is in no way more important than somebody with a question 1. It's just based on your experience. I also want to say that the impact you make on the world, there is no hierarchy of impact connected to the questions. So a Q5 is not necessarily going to make more impact than a Q2. It's just you being in tune with your experience and what you have gone through. So you got a question, and the question speaks to a need. With every question, there is a kryptonite that really undermines your question, that sends you into an emotional roller coaster. So let's talk about these real quick. Question 1 is, okay, this is a need for physical and emotional what? Safety. The kryptonite for somebody who is a Q1 is confusion, surprises, or unpredictability. How many of you know somebody that does not like surprises? Okay? How many of you know someone, they like to have all the ducks in a row in advance because they want to have that stability of knowledge. Q1, I've got a good friend, and this good friend, he was invited by another friend in San Diego on Highway 1 to go for a ride in his new car. His new car was a Tesla Plaid. Anybody familiar with the Tesla Plaid? It is the fastest, most high-performance Tesla that's on the road. 0 to 60 in like 1.9 seconds. And so my friend is riding in the passenger seat. He is a Q1, and his buddy said, "Hey, Mike, get ready. I'm about to drop it into ludicrous mode." Anybody know what I'm talking about with Teslas? And so it's like the all-power mode, and all of a sudden, in a matter of like a second, this Tesla electric vehicle is up to like 130 miles an hour. So fast. My friend Mike begins to have a panic attack. And here's what he says. He said, "Get me out of this car." Why did he want to get out of the car? Because he didn't feel what? Safe. He wasn't in control of the situation, and he didn't feel safe. Q2 is am I secure? It's the need for financial security and connection. If you are somebody who cares about security, what really is your kryptonite is when your bank account gets too low. We see some heads nodding. How many of you know people that stress about money all the time? Are you guilty of this? Hey, this is a shame-free gym. You can lift your head high. She's, okay. How many of you know somebody who is always stressing about finances. Anybody know somebody like that? So that could be a Q2. Q3 is the question of, am I loved? It's about being seen and heard. The kryptonite for people that are asking that question is when people overlook them, they don't recognize their story. How many of you have heard of the term being gaslit? That really undermines a Q3 because somebody is saying what you're feeling and experiencing is not real. And so that's that question of, am I loved? Am I wanted is the need to feel pursued and to have belonging. If you're somebody who's asking about, am I wanted, what really hurts is rejection or being left out. How many of you know somebody who would be crushed if they didn't get an invite to the party? Like everybody got the invite and they didn't get the invite and they're like, wow, like I want to be at the party, but I'm not at the party. So the question of, am I wanted? And then we've got Q5 is, am I successful? It's the need for achievement, the need for accomplishment. If you're a Q5 and you care about success, what is your kryptonite? Failure. When you fail at something, it crushes you because you are so in tune and focused on having success and accomplishment, hitting goals. Then we've got Q6, which is the question of, am I good enough? And your need is to be valued for who you are, valued for what you do. I know somebody who's a Q6, and he always cares about that question. And I said, how does that impact your life? And he said this, I rewrite my emails 20 times. Because I don't ever want an email to not be good enough. So he's always going over things again and again and again because he doubts the value of what he is doing. And then Q7 is, do I have purpose? And it's about making an impact on the world. If you're a Q7, your kryptonite is working on things that don't matter to you. Have you ever thought to yourself, why did we even have this meeting? This was such an absolute waste of time. Why are we even here? Just send us the information and we can read the information. So here's how this works. And I got to move quick. You have a primal what? And that came from the life, right, that you lived. Your primal question is unique to you based on the experience that you had. And your question speaks to your apex need or what is most important to you. Here's how this works. When you get a yes to your question, upper right corner, life is what? Good. If you're somebody who cares about being safe, how good are you going to feel if you know you're safe? It's like 10 out of 10. You're going to be in your zone. But if you have a question that speaks to your need and you get a no or a maybe, you are going to enter what is known as the what? Scramble. This is crazy. I was coaching an executive the other day, business world, and we were talking about the primal questions, and here's what she said. She said, I'm just now realizing that, hear me on this, I have been in my scramble for a decade. So for the last 10 years of her life, she has been living in a scramble, unhinged emotionally, because her question was being answered with a no. There is a cost that comes with your scramble. There's a cost that you're going to pay. There's a cost that your people are going to pay. There's a cost that your impact is going to pay. There is a cost that the mission of God in your life is going to play when you live in a scramble long term. So let's just touch on this a little bit. What does it look like to live in your scramble? It is I'm not a dancer, but it is the chaotic whirlwind. Don't video that, please. It is the chaotic whirlwind of your question being answered with a no. And here's what a scramble looks like. See if you resonate with any of these descriptives, either for yourself or maybe for people that you know and love. When you're in your scramble, you experience exhaustion. You experience depression. You experience burnout. You experience unhealthy choices. You often give a forced yes in an attempt to answer your question, even if the way you're doing it is toxic and not healthy. And you may adapt to your behavior. Chris, we got so little time and so much to cover. A young lady came up to me and she said, man, I'm just trying to process a lot of life. And I said, what's going on? She said, I just got divorced. She was 27. And I said, what was going on? And here's what she told me. She said, from the moment that I started dating this guy, I knew that he was toxic. From the very beginning. And we were talking about some of this primal question stuff, and I said, what's your question? And she said, I'm a Q4. Q4 is, am I wanted? And here's what she told me. I knew he was toxic, but I wanted to be wanted so bad. I was willing to date, get engaged, and marry someone who was toxic because he made me feel what? Is this connecting for everybody? Think about this. You will choose your career based on your question. You will date based on your question. You will engage with communities based on your question. You will make life decisions all based on the question that you carry. And so living in your scramble, the hope is that you can recognize that and that you can manage that based on the question that you have. So let me just make sure we're tracking quickly. Does everybody understand the overview of the 7 questions? Are we kind of good on that? And everybody have a chance to take a photo of this so you can go back and you can think about this. Here's a couple questions I want you to think about as you think about your question. So the idea is you're going to have a little bit of all 7, but what's most important is that you understand your top 2. Everyone say top 2. Because those are the most impactful for your life. So you want to understand the primary and secondary, or the number 1 and number 2 question. Here's a couple more questions you can think about that can help you understand what your question might be. Think about, what would you do for free because you love doing that thing so much? What you love is often tied into your question. How do you help people, and what do people come to you for? How you help people is often tied into your question. Think about this, Pastor Greg, as we think about next generations. What would make your blood boil if you heard an adult saying this to a young person? What if you overheard an adult saying to a kid, nobody is ever going to want you? How are you going to feel? If you're a Q4 who cares about being wanted, what's happening with your blood in that moment? We're about to go with blows for the name of Jesus. But your blood's starting to boil because that really gets underneath your skin because you care about that thing. Or think about what makes you scramble is often tied to your question. Where does your question come from? Often early childhood trauma, going through things that are traumatic. Life trauma could be divorce, job loss, a relationship that breaks apart. It could be unspoken pressures in a community. How many of you, by a show of hands, we're going to make it personal, how many of you, by a show of hands, recognize there are unspoken pressures within Adventism that nobody talks about? But they fully exist. Unspoken pressures in a community that nobody talks about, which can impact the question that you carry in your life. Or it could be somebody who's got a role model that is so impactful. Gentleman I was helping out, he called me and he said, Poppy has 2 more days to live. Poppy is this gentleman's grandpa. And he said, here's what he said, I don't know how I am going to carry his legacy forward because he lived such a big, impactful life. My friend who is about to lose his grandpa, he's a Q7 who cares about purpose because his grandpa lived a life of such great purpose. So the questions come from all different places in life. Photograph this slide for me. As a child, you had needs for things like self-worth, safety, purpose, inclusion. Read this with me. These needs show up as unspoken what? Primal questions. How many of you would agree often the same questions you asked as a child you ask every day as an adult? Think about the things that you think about and the questions that you go through. So you got a question, you get a yes, life is good, no, and you live in what's known as a scramble. I'm going to skip this just so we can get through. 7 questions, and I want to talk about this. You may wonder, man, we need some hope. Like, the questions are kind of, there's a lot to think about there. Let me give you some hope. Is it okay if we give you a little bit of hope? At the end of your question, and this just makes me so happy to talk about. At the end of your question is what's known as the primal what? Gift. The primal gift is your relational talent arising from your question that benefits other people. And so at the end of all of this clarity and understanding is you being able to wake up every day and saying, I am going to release my gift to the world for the honor and the glory of God. And so when you understand you and your story, you can release more of that to other people. Would you agree with this statement? And I love this. Would you agree with this? Would you agree with this? Hey, think about it. What I give away is what I need most. So if you're a person and you care about safety, what are you going to give other people? Safety. If you care about success, what are you going to help coach other people to? Success. So at the end of your question, oh, that's so good. At the end of your question is a gift that you have based on your life that you're going to deploy with the gifts that God has given you to impact other people. So I was doing a workshop and a gentleman was in the front row. We were in Atlanta, and this was all men in the audience. And I'll just say, it's with women too, but with a lot of men, it can be hard to get men to open up emotionally. This guy in the front row, he said, stop this workshop. He was weeping, front row. And I said, man, take a moment. What do you want to say? And here's what he said. He said, so you're telling me that my trauma is not the end of the story. He said, for the first time in my life, it clicked that what I have been through, it was not my choice, but I can choose to use what I have been through to bless other people. What you have been through is not your fault, but the healing journey is your responsibility. And you can use what you have been through to be a gift to other people. Somebody say amen to that. So grown man is like weeping. And he's like, so my trauma is not the end of the story, that's it. And in understanding what you have been through, you can get the help you need to heal and process so you can ultimately release your gift to other people for the honor and the glory of God. Is that good news? So grab your phone, take a picture of these 7 primal gifts, and then we're going to just keep working through this, and we'll do a quick Q&A. So these are all the gifts that come as a result of people's questions. So if you're a Q1, and let's just go through this out loud so you can remember. Q1 is, am I what? Safe. So if you are a Q1, what is your job? Keep other people what? Safe. You ever met somebody? They always care about, like, do we have the phone numbers? Do we know where the hospital is? Do we have a safety plan? Because they care about safety. So the safety individuals, they are the guardians. 2, the question is, am I secure? People who care about security, especially financially, are often financial providers for other people. I was doing we were at a young adult life tour stop. This gentleman came to me afterwards and he said this. He said, guess what? And I said, what? He said, I'm a provider. And I said, that's great. And I said, what are you going to do with that? He said, as you were talking, my wife and I made the decision. We are financially secure. We have a young man who can't afford to go to college. We made the decision this morning that we're going to pay for his entire 4 years of college 100%. He said, I'm a provider, and I have the superpower of providing financial security for other people. Q3 is the people professionals. The question is, am I loved? Q3, those people professionals, they help every person to feel seen and every person to feel heard. If you're a Q4, you're a connector because you want everybody to feel included. If you're a Q5, you are a maximizer. How many of you in this room have ever done athletic coaching of any kind? Little league teams, whatever. Often coaches are Q5s because they help other people become successful. And then you've got Q6, they're value creators, help people see the value in themselves, value in what they're doing. And then Q7 are often visionaries, people who help imagine what may not exist. So at the end of all of this, there is this gift of you releasing this gift to the world. So let me go ahead and we'll wrap this up. These are two photos. They're of the same individuals. This is my wife, Kim, on the left, your left, and that is her sister, Jennifer, on the right. They were born in Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know the backstory as to why this happened, but Kim and Jennifer's birth mom fell to hardcore drug addiction when they were very young. I could share stories with you that I will not share with you. But she came to a place in young motherhood where she could not take care of Kim and Jennifer. And so there was a court hearing, and the court hearing was a custody battle. So the birth dad, Jim, and the mom, they could try to figure out who was going to get custody of the kids. Jennifer and Kim, they got all dressed up in their finest dresses. And they went to the court hearing for this custody battle conversation. I want you to think about this. These young ladies are like 5 and 7 years old. Mom never showed up. So here you are looking your best to have parents fight over you to decide custody, and mom never shows up. Okay? Dad remarries a wonderful lady named Wanda. She adopted these two girls as her own, and they were so loved, and just think about this, they were so loved until Wanda and Jim had a birth child of their own. And then they were second rate because they were not the birth child of the new stepmom who had adopted them, and it was a real tough upbringing. Fast forward all the way to Kim and I in college. We got married in February, and about a week or so before our wedding, Kim's parents call her and say, we just want you to let you know, we want to let you know we're not coming to the wedding, and none of our side of the family is coming to the wedding at all. Don't expect us to be there. And I just want to say this humbly, I am a good guy. Like, I am, like, serious, like, nobody even clapped at all. Like, it's like, nah. I'm a good guy. Like, my hair, so. But listen, I'm a good guy. I'm a great father. And I'm a great husband to Kim. And her parents didn't show up to the wedding. My dad walked Kim down the aisle. Pastor Don Keel married Kim and I, and he was there when he was at the front standing next to me, and it wasn't Kim's own dad that was walking her down the aisle. It was my dad, who was fill-in dad because the dad had not shown up. And so you think about all the stuff that they have been through, and here's a photo of Kim and Jennifer. That's the birth baby Brandon. I'm actually going to see him tomorrow. He's not a baby anymore. Can I just give you some crazy hope from God that is so good? I love this. Here's what the word says in Deuteronomy 30, verses 3 to 6. Here's what it says. God, your God, will restore everything you lost. You can say amen at any point you want to say amen. God, your God, will restore everything you have lost. Okay, he'll have compassion on you. He'll come back and pick up all the pieces from your life. Does that sound like scramble language? And from all over the places where you were scattered, no matter how far you end up, God, your God, will get you out of there. God, your God, will cut away the thick calluses on your heart and your children's hearts, freeing you to love God, your God, with your whole heart and soul, and to live, really live. I just got to tell you with God, your story is not over yet. And you may think, this is it. Like, nobody wanted me. Nobody's showing up for me. This is what I got to live with. But the story is not over yet. Kim's gift is making people feel so loved and comfortable instantaneously. Like, she doesn't even describe me as a kind person, but she is a very kind person. You know why she is so good at this picture? Because here are her two questions. Am I safe and am I wanted? She is a Q1 and a Q4. So her gift is that every person she meets, within 30 seconds, how does she make them feel? Safe and wanted. And so this is her gifting that she has. So for me, this is a photo speaking for the University of Colorado, another story for another time. This was 1 week before Deion Sanders got hired at the University of Colorado. Anyway, great story about how God opened up this massive opportunity to share the gospel. I got a whole bunch of friends who are in the NFL now because of this opportunity. I am a Q7, which is, do I have purpose? And my second question is security. Am I secure? Because my mom and dad stressed about finances a lot when I was growing up. So here's how this will all make sense. We separate on the airplane. Kim goes to Portland, and I'm going to Nashville for the Arctic tundra of 2022. So cold. Kim was scrambling because she didn't want to go back to a home where she never felt safe and she never felt wanted. And she had no idea why. All she knew is she leaned around in the plane and said, please get me off the plane. No idea what was going on. I'm a purpose individual. So my goal was to gift the family with the Hallmark experience. So what was my goal? Get the family to where? To Nashville. So the businessman or businesswoman can reunite with the flower shop owner and the whatever it was. So Kim was scrambling because she didn't feel safe and she didn't feel wanted. I was scrambling because I was failing in my purpose of getting the family to Nashville. And I had no idea what was going on and how this was going to play out. Kim told me about a year and a half ago, she walked out in the front yard, she's just crying. And I said, Kim, like, you okay? What's going on? Everything okay? And she said, for the first time in my life, I realize I'm not messed up. I have just been through some things. And what I have been through has imprinted a question upon my life that I now carry with me for my entire life. The question, especially if it's from earlier childhood, it will stick with 99% of you for your entire life. But it's not the end of the story. It also turns into an incredible gift. So we're wrapping this up. Is this helpful for anybody? When you think about these questions, let me just jam through this application real quick. How does this help you as a leader? It is so important. It is so important that you remember, and I want you to let this stick in your head. Remember this. Jesus has already answered your primal question with a resounding yes. In Jesus, you are safe, you are secure, you are loved, you are wanted, you are successful, you are good enough, and in Jesus you have purpose. So as a leader, remember, it starts with your identity, your worth, and your value, and where that comes from, and the fact that Jesus has already answered your question with a resounding yes. So in leadership, when you are going through a scramble and you feel like your question's not being answered, recognize the scramble and manage your life. So you don't have to live in that scramble long term. When it comes to relationships, this will make sense to so many of you. If you want the relationships that you are in with people to absolutely thrive, do this. Answer your people's question with a resounding yes. So what do I do every day? I wake up and get going, and every day I make a concerted effort to help Kim feel safe and wanted. That's how you level up relationships, is you answer your people's question with a resounding yes. And you help people answer your question with a yes. If you're raising up little kids, Pastor Greg has a young man, met him in the back a few minutes ago. If you're raising up the next generation of little kids, here's the goal. Answer every one of the 7 questions with a resounding yes for the next generation. May we as parents and grandparents, mentors as the church, help every child to feel like they are safe, secure, loved, wanted, successful, good enough, and that they have purpose. Anybody want to say amen to that? So help the kids know that they are in a place where they are going to get a yes from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And they're going to get a yes from you. When you got teams, if you have teams that are they got no synergy, everybody's at each other's throats, it's often because people are scrambling that you are working with. So figure out what their question is and build a culture where you can help them get a yes to their question. And then it comes to leadership impact. Whatever your primal gift is, leverage that gift for the honor and the glory of God. When Kim and I start road trips, I pop out my phone and I just say, because Kim's a person of safety, I say, Kim, here's the route that we're going to take on the road trip. Takes 10 seconds. And all of a sudden, it puts her at ease because she cares about safety. And she wants to know where we're going. So it's very easy to help your people get a yes to your question. Just take a photo of this. We don't have time to go through it all, but take a photo of this. This is a tool called the Primal Map, and it simply is a way for you to put your questions in the middle of the page. Look at the descriptives on the top to help you know if you're in your scramble. Think about how you can respond to that scramble by writing a statement of what is true. Look for examples, build a plan to get out of your scramble, make changes as needed. Think about the fact that you're always going to avoid stuff where you feel like your question's going to be answered with a no. I know we are fully out of time. I met a young man from Nashville, Tennessee, and he was pretty emotional, and I said, what's going on? And he said, I've been trying to release my gospel music album for 5 years. And I said, why don't you just release the album to the world? He was very accomplished. And he said, I keep second guessing on whether the album is going to be good enough. What's his question? Q6, am I what? Good enough. And so he's been sitting on an amazing album that could bless people because he's so afraid he is not good enough. And I was like, I'm not a singer, but let me give you some advice. Launch the album, and then you can make the next one a little better, and the next one a little better, and the next one a little better. But often we'll avoid stuff because we're afraid our questions are going to be answered, and then think about ways that you could deploy your gift to the world. Let me just take a question or two, and then would you like the QR code so you can find out what your question is? Would that be okay? All right, just a second or two. I'd love any thoughts, reactions to what I shared. Was this helpful? What do you think? Put a hand up. I'm sorry. Put a hand up if you've got any feedback, reactions, comments, What do you think?
Definitely the primal question, how do you use your primal gift? I think that shows strength.
Yeah, so the connection between having a primal question and having a gift, absolutely. Yeah, somebody else, any feedback, thoughts on what was shared? So your brain basically exploded and it's all it's all over the place. Yep. Yeah. Yep.
It is like a light went off, like it was dark and stuff, and now like I'm starting to connect the pieces and understand stuff.
So yeah, the idea of like going from darkness to a little bit of light and kind of connecting some of those pieces. How many of you, when you think about the scramble, can recognize that you've been living in a scramble? And you may not have even known why in the world you were, but it's exhausting and it's depleting, and sometimes you just don't have the language to describe what that is. Yep. Yeah. So to go back, you're going to find yourself in a little bit of all 7 for sure. But what's most important is that you identify your top 1 and your top 2, because those are going to impact your life the most. So a little bit of all 7, but land on those top 1 and those top 2. Did you have a question, or are you just waving at me? Oh, okay, you're good. Anybody else? Yep. Yeah, your trauma's not the end of your story. Absolutely. Yep. You guys good? Anybody else? Thoughts, comments, questions? Okay, let me just give you this, and then we'll hang around. I'm going to come back to this. Budgets are a little bit low, so I wanted to celebrate by bringing you these digital balloons. And so go ahead and give yourselves a big round of applause. And I want to celebrate the fact that you have incredible gifts that you can leverage for the service of other people. And so think about the gifts and how you release those gifts. Here's the QR code. If you want to, I'll leave that up even a little bit later, but if you want to just QR, this will let you take a 12-minute assessment that I've got, and it'll help you in about 12 minutes to land on what might be your primal question, not your secondary, but your primal. And then you can begin that journey of thinking about what that might be. So that's the QR code. On the assessment, it's a sliding scale. So make sure that you slide the scale. When you get to the end, you can enter an email. It'll kick back a bunch of information. But screenshot the last screen, and that'll tell you what your question might be. So there's a good QR code. And I'll just give you 2 final things, and then we'll pray and wrap up. What I shared, it's packaged in a book by a friend of mine named Mike Foster. You can grab this book off of Amazon. It's 200 pages, super easy read. So this is the Primal Question book. I've been working with Mike for about 2.5 years and have taken well over 50,000 people through this framework that has been very helpful for them. But grab the book and you can read through that. And then if you have people that were not here that you wish had been here, you can go to my podcast website, which is riseandlead.com, and you can have anybody take the assessment right there on the homepage. There's no hook, line, and sinker. There's no email list, but it's a great way for people who weren't here for you to start a conversation with them by having them take the assessment, and then you can talk about what's your question? Where did your question come from? How has it impacted your life? And what might you do with that question now that you understand a little bit more about the thing that is going on underneath the thing, and that's called the primal questions. Okay, hey, God bless you, and thanks for letting me share. Hope that was helpful.
Ben, Pastor Ben, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I wish I had scheduled you for more times.
Yeah.
I think I have used his wisdom a lot already, but I wish I could use more because this was so good. So this is what's happening now. We